Hello, everyone. My name is Chloe Lum, and I'm here on behalf of Expozine, a zine and small press fair from Montreal. I'm joining you from unceded Indigenous lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation are recognized as the traditional custodians of Shoshone, or so-called Montreal. And I am absolutely thrilled to introduce my friend and colleague, Jasjeet Gill, who I have known for quite some time. Me and Jasjeet met through the DIY poster making scene and its adjacent arms in printmaking and editions. And it's been really exciting for me to witness his practice over the years. So Jasjeet Gill is an artist based in Toronto, Ontario. He runs Color Code Printing, a risograph and screen printing studio established in 2011 alongside his wife, Jenny Gitman. Color Code offers artist-friendly printing services and operates a small press, publishing artist books, zines, and prints. Color Code hosts risograph workshops at their studio, currently via video chat, where they teach an overview of the printing process and help participants create two-color Rizzo posters. He is a co-organizer of Zine Dream, a small press fair that began in 2007 and features 90 plus exhibitors, including small presses, self-publishers, printmakers, and illustrators. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Jasjeet.
Thanks for having me. Okay, so I guess I'll just take it from here, and I'll share my screen and show some pictures while I just talk a little bit about starting Color Code and yeah, just about Color Code a little bit. And so yeah, let's see. Let's talk, okay. So yeah, like Chloe said, I started Color Code in 2011, just like soon after I graduated from OCAD for printmaking, and like that is on the kind of the tail end, or not tail end, but that was like after many years of making like screen printing gig posters and things, like just in at school, and when I was like very young and like in my parents' basement, and like yeah, so after like my early 20s of being involved in like DIY screen printing, printmaking, like making art through print, I started a printing company, and this is our old logo. So it's a little dated, but yeah. So here is me and Jenny with one of our resos. So I run Color Code. We're with my wife. We've been working together full time since for I'd say at least I think probably since 2013 or 2014. Prior to that, she was had worked in like web development and graphic design, and was like just like helping me start the business, like kind of behind the scenes as she was like working elsewhere. But yeah, 2013 or 14, she joined full time, and it was at that point it became like our livelihood. So I don't know if it's that interesting to get into what Riso is and all that, but this is one of the first Risos I had. I bought this with two other artists, Patrick Kyle and Michael DeForge. We split this, the cost of this. It was like a few $100, and we just had it, and it was in my apartment at first. And like at that time, this was prior to starting Color Code, we were all just making our own zines and prints with it. and at that time, so like 2010, around 2010, there wasn't too much like you know, if you're like at Exposine, resale printing is a kind of, it's like ubiquitous now with self-publishing, small press. But back then it wasn't so easy to find, or like there weren't so many people printing with Resos. And so we got this machine and I was printing with it, making my own stuff. And gradually more and more people were asking me to print with this like cool, like weird old photocopier that prints in like spot colors. And from there, I like, it was like a snowball of like, okay, I got this like dingy old printer from that was made in the 80s, wasn't like working so great, and all these people are asking me to print their comics and zines. And so I was like, I'll move on to the next like dingy broken printer. Like this is like buying stuff like yeah, like on the at the end of their life with some other printer or print shop or wherever, and like squeezing a little bit more out of it, just like you know, just to keep it like inexpensive and cheap. Like yeah, so this is a funny advertisement for the Reso that I have kicking around. It's just a funny old ad. And this is
can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so often when I talk about you, I credit you as having popularized Riso printing in Canada, for especially for artists and small publishers. Would you think that's an accurate assessment?
I think I think so. I feel like there's like actually probably 2 or 3 other printers that like all started around that time.
Okay.
And it was like yeah, it was kind of there's kind of like a boom from that point onwards of Riso printing, but it was like I'd say, you know, like kind of synchronous to a lot of it coming up in like comics community, like throughout the States, and like yeah, like DIY like printers, like finding these Risos and having them in their apartments, like all throughout like small press scenes all throughout like North America. All this was like really like kicking off around 2010, I'd say. Prior to that, there was like I should say Risos are like very common. They're like, you can find them very easily in the context of like a kind of more like a more normie type of print shop, you know, commercial printer, but also at like in schools, like you know, like elementary, whatever, middle school, grades, like grade schools, and in churches. Like those are the main businesses of Riso, like a main customer like base of Riso.
Okay.
Sometime in the last 10 to 15 years, like a lot of these machines have been being discarded by those by those customers, like on Craigslist, Kijiji, etc. And that's like kind of when, oh, like this generation of artists and printers and small press publishers, like are seeing them on eBay or whatever for a couple $100 and picking them up and like just like starting full on print shops out of their homes. But yeah, I'd say like prior to 2010 and 11, when Color Code was starting out, there was not nearly so much of it. And in the last 10 years, it's really blown up and has had kind of, I'd say, has reached a peak, and where it was like this cool, this hip thing, and then now it's like just like kind of a regular, like a staple of self-publishing, you know. Yeah, so I was saying that it was like just like kind of building on like having a bit more demand for it. So I was like, just like very slowly trying to find better machines to work with. And this is a picture of a two-color printer that like we probably 2013, 2012, I moved it out of my apartment and actually had a studio space for it, which was like a significant step for me, like to not be like living with my printer and like surrounded by paper and to have like a space where like I have to leave my home to go and like do this work. And yeah, so that's just another Riso and just more Riso paraphernalia. These are the cylinders. So if you're familiar with screen printing, the cylinder is basically a silk screen, but it's dedicated to a single color. And this is just an old picture of, so that was another part of like being like having such a scrappy start to trying to like start a business, is like buying old broken printers. I often found myself fixing things more than actually using them. And this is a picture of our old home studio. So this is a corner of our apartment. I feel like it looks pretty cool, but it was just like, this was like a third of our apartment. It was like the living room was just to the left of that shelf. And this is a like kind of more recent picture of our studio. So now currently we run Color Code out of a shared screen printing studio. So we have a corner of the space and the rest is shared with a group of artists. It's called Punch Clock. It's a it's like loosely a collective in that we are all artists sharing space in the facilities, and that's how we can like afford the rent for a bigger space than we could on our own, you know. And so in addition to the Riso, we still do screen printing, which is like where I got my, like how I got started, you know. And along the way have accumulated many more Risos, and it's like now we're like more in a position that we can like spend like not like have to buy a Riso like right before it's totally garbage, like before it's like deteriorated, like you know, like seen it's like life expectancy or whatever. But we can like go through the Riso distributor and get like a still used but not like a pretty well maintained printer. Yeah. Yeah. So more stuff, more Riso stuff. Yeah. And this is a picture of just how we receive the printers. Like we still have like managed to find printers secondhand from other printers and like arranging to get them shipped to us, which was like always like felt so exciting to receive them, and all like also ominous to be like, it is just like, it's not a Riso is not a printing press. It's still like kind of a flimsy plastic machine that like won't hold up forever. So it was like receiving this thing wrapped up on a skid and like, did it break along the way? Yeah. This is our particular swatch book. So if you're not familiar with Riso, it's like the Riso prints in a very specific range of spot colors. And Riso manufactures all these colors. And so if you come to us to print something, these are the colors we have available for you to print with. If you go to another printer, they might have a totally different range of colors. There's some like kind of standard colors that most people have, but it can vary quite a lot. And this is why you print, like why people print with the Riso is like to print with there's a handful of fluorescent inks and a metallic ink, and it's like the only other way to print with them is to do letterpress or silk screen or offset printing, and all of those things require a big footprint, equipment and chemicals and all of this, and or like you go to a printer to do it and you have to produce a huge quantity in order for it to be affordable. But with the Riso, you can access these pretty funky colors and like print, small quantities. You can have the Riso in your apartment and it's like non-toxic, and yeah, so it's a lot more accessible in that way. Just some offcuts and some samples of other like prints we've done. Yeah, I think got yeah, in the, like 10 years of printing so many things. I can show you. This is by I think or your friends with Arrington.
Yeah, he's a good
From
friend of mine.
yeah, old time religion. So a lot of people that we've worked with in our publishing aspect of running color code are like people that I connected to from like being younger and and like screen printing and making posters. So I like I don't know, that was like part of like growing color code, was like reaching out to these people that I admired and worked with in some way in like my screen printing practice, to like bring them in, like share Riso with them, and it to like show them how to, or not always how to, but like translate their work into Riso printing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about how you choose which artists you partner with to publish their works, and like if you have like a kind of rubric, or if it's basically just like people who whose stuff you like.
It's a little bit of it's like we don't have like a explicit rubric or mandate to our like any of our publishing projects, and it like, because I don't know, I feel like it has like a shift with the like what we are publishing, the kind of it has like shifts, it has shifted so much over
Okay.
the 10 years of printing, and it did like often I made a lot of like often at the like beginning and even now, like these are connections to artists that I made prior to Riso, and I wanted to like bring their work to Riso printing, like bring like our particular expertise to like work that was often screen printed or whatever, and then like just share like our passion for this medium with these people, like from the other thing that I had been doing.
Yeah.
But then it's like now kind of a mix of like, sometimes people are approaching us to like as like approaching us to as a printer, and it's like a particular project that will like really strike something in us that like it's like visually and graphically like really like scratches some itch in our like in our brains, I guess, and so we want to be part of producing and distributing the work, and then I think the common thread is like Riso is like, it is pretty I think it's like pretty it's like if you're involved in small press, you know about it, but it is still a pretty niche medium, and so like most people don't know what it's about or how it works, and like it is just like screen printing, about kind of like fitting like limits of like the limits of how you can reproduce your artwork, or like staying within those like specific color ranges, and like the like kind of resolution or like quality of reproduction. but I think I included a lot of these like photo kind of samples as like kind of like I take pride in like the fact that like it is like this kind of lo-fi shoddy type of printing a little bit like aesthetically, but you can get a lot out of it, a lot more than most people think.
Yeah, you can really play with the saturation, and I think you guys do a really great job of that. Also, it's also interesting because like a lot of artists, if they go to art school or do some kind of formal training, they will have done screen printing. But there's very few art schools that you're going to go to where you're going to be doing Riso printing as part of your coursework. I mean, I only know of 2 universities offhand that have that as like a class in their printmaking departments.
Yeah, I think yeah, I also know of maybe 2 like a handful of places that do it, and it's something that has developed in the last few years. And like it is such a, especially for like a young artist, like making your own publications is such a like fruitful like thing to do, especially if you're involved in like print media. But it is like I think there is just like a bit of like will be a big hill or learning curve for it to enter academic like studio school environments, but slowly creeping in there. But again, like I was saying, the gap is that there is like there isn't a support or like kind of connection between Riso, the corporation and manufacturer, and like the arts community. So that like is kind of a void in which like a lot of Riso printing can be kind of a pit of like like having a broken Riso and like not knowing what to do with it. This is a book we made with an artist, one of our studio mates and a good friend, Alicia, Alicia's Classic Cool Shop. Yeah. This is Jenny. So this is so in our practice, I'm like more the hands-on production person, and Jenny is the like pre-press and like knows all the computer stuff and like will be more like connecting to customers and things like that. And so we're a good team in like that division of our work. And this is duotone, so that's another big part of our practice now, or in like the last like 2 or 3 years, is doing workshops, because that gets a little bit closer to the heart of like what we want to be doing with Riso printing, is like, like sharing our passion for the medium and teaching like people how to utilize it in like an interesting way. So we do it's now it's more than like maybe twice a month we're doing Zoom workshops, but we used to do them in our studio and have people come in, see the Riso work, and then spend time working on their own prints. Yeah, I think that's my last slide. Yes. So then I can also share yeah, so if you can see that all right. This is a pile of books from our a lot of it's from our archive now, like out of print, but I have a few more recent titles that are still available. And yeah, so I don't know, I'll just pick them up and try to show them to you. Oh, I also have a few prints of my own. It's like fewer and far between that I make a poster, but this is for Jenny's band New Fries for a show probably two or 3 years ago. Yeah, I'd like to be making more prints, but the time is not always there. So these are a series of postcards I've made. And, a thank you card for a local store called Likely General. This is the first book, first zine we published. It's called Ideas, a Poem for a Button, by Jesse Harris. Oh yeah, it says color code. A few of the first projects weren't even color code, but anyways. So this was, and so these early projects I feel like really were like, I mean, even now we're like figuring out shortcuts and how to do things properly, like through doing like our print projects. But especially in those earlier days, it was like my background was in print was like teaching myself how to screen print and then going to art school. So I didn't have like like a base, like a understanding print production and like book layout and things like that. I just taught all of it to myself, and I really love, this is a mock-up that Jesse had made prior to making his book, and that, like, you know, he was also he divided the so the 2 layers of color are printed in black and white, which is how the Riso reproduces everything in black and white films, I guess, or positives. So you created an acetate for 1 layer and the paper copy for the 2nd layer. And so we could like just imagine the misregistration of Riso printing and like, okay, yeah, that's fine. You know, it's not a big deal if it's like, which is like, that is a inherent aspect of Riso printing in that, like, it's not made for like a high quality artist reproduction or fine art printing. It's like a fast, inexpensive, like printing for offices or something, you know. So he made this this mock-up, and I was like, it like being the first like kind of not serious, but like being the first thing that Color Code published that I was publishing with another artist, like it put me at a lot of ease to see like, okay, yeah, like like how to manage expectations of like reproducing someone else's work. Yeah, so I really love this artifact of this project, and it's a collection of like slogans from like kind of counterculture, like hippie, like pins, you know, and it's like kind of reads as poetry. Oh, it's a little bit blurry. And then also these are 2 out of a trilogy of books by Michael Como, who is you know, I like is an artist that I look up to. And when I was, I don't know, probably 19 or 20, when I first moved to Toronto, and I think maybe before I moved to Toronto, when I lived with my parents, I would come to the city to help him in his print shop, which is at Punch Clock, and learned a little bit about screen printing and like, you know, gig posters and like being in a DIY space and all these things that have become like, you know, the root of my life for of my whole adult life. And so when I started Color Code, yeah, I had to publish his work. This first book was published by Koyama, but yeah, we printed all of it. And his books, so this is called Halberta, I don't know if I said that, but it's like a kind of like puts Wolverine in this like the Marvel comic character Wolverine in this storyline of like fighting the Tar Sands and Stephen Harper, and like it's a very I don't know what to say. It's like was very poignant, and like he's a very good writer, and yeah, it was like I don't know, like an honor to print it.
Yeah, he's
So
like the poster king of Toronto.
yeah, yeah,
I don't
and
think
this
there's anyone in DIY printing in Canada who doesn't look up to that guy.
yeah, yeah. And the first book we did was also like a funny. I wish I had kept, or maybe I had returned them to him, but like we printed everything. So everything we print now is like we got our like pre-press skills and like our like we know like whatever Adobe, front and back. We can like print any, like help anyone get anything to print. But this book, Michael gave us hard copies of all the artwork and the separate layers of the artwork, and I was scanning it onto the Riso like a photocopier and just like manually lining up all the colors. And that was like looking back, that was like, oh yeah, it like looked really good. It's like so look like so funny to be. I was doing this at this time. I had the Riso actually in my parents' kitchen because I had run out of space for like I had bought a second Riso and I had run out of space at my apartment. So I was like going to their house and printing this book. Like yeah, printing it like all Riso printing is one color at a time, but like having a like black and white photocopy and like scanning it like it's a photocopier, and then like just trying to line it up while like my parents are like, what the hell are you doing? It made me like, looking back, I'm like, thank God well, anyways. Yeah, so this is the first book I think we published, or we printed this one in 2012. Yeah, Alberta. And then this is a book by Z Lute. We printed in I think also 2012 or 2013. Yeah, spring of 2013. But she is an artist that I really admired greatly as a screen printer and printmaker, and poster artist, and I just thought her work was, have thought her illustrations and poster art was so incredible. So it's nice to be able to work with her for a Riso project.
Yeah, her work is great.
And she's a Dutch artist from I don't know where in the Netherlands, but she is like from basically in the Netherlands. The print shop Extrapool or Knust are like, they're kind of the originators of like Riso printing in like a kind of DIY art context. And like, while I feel like I'm part of a like cohort or generation of artists and designers that are printing with the Risos. Prior to starting Color Code, there was Extrapool and maybe a handful of other printers in like throughout Europe, but yeah, they're also like.
I don't think I had ever heard of Riso printing before I went to Extrapool.
Yeah.
I think in 2006 for the first time that I was there, and I was just like, I felt like this knowledge had been hidden from me.
Yeah. That's exactly how I felt like when I saw the Riso for the first time. Because I actually kind of remember you being in Toronto with AIDS Wolf, like playing a show and talking about it, and like like not really clicking in with me then, but then like later on seeing a RISO for the first time and being like, I've been doing this by hand, like because of screen printing, I've been doing this by hand, and there's like this little machine that does it. It's so like it really blew my mind, and like I could after seeing it, I was like, I gotta get one. And I also have here a series of books that we printed with that we published by Tetsunori Tawaraya. It's like another connection I made through Gig Posters and Gig Poster Art. He's like a prolific poster artist and musician, and just not just poster artist, but like illustrator, printmaker, etc. And so it was also another like person I wanted to bring to RISO. And so this is a series of books that are all like, it's like kind of a survey of like kind of what like alien life through through his eyes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This one's called Telescope. So he's checking out the life on another planet through a telescope. Yeah, so this is another book, or not. This is by Jeanette Lapon. She's a comic artist and illustrator here in Toronto, and this is we did a reproduction of her sketchbook. So she had a little Kayama Press sketchbook that looked kind of like this, like it had a craft cover and logo, etc. And her original sketchbook had like these stickers she had made and packing tape all over it, and we just tried to like use our RISO skills to like reproduce it as accurately as possible. It's a series of very cute drawings. Yeah. This is by Anna Mae Henry. It's called Make a Living. It's a series based on, she kind of like reframes food packaging with these like very evocative messages about like, yeah, about living and the stress of like, or yeah, about money and food and like, just living a healthy life. She does a series, we've printed a series of prints for her where she, I guess this would be kind of one of them, but it's like the No Name brand of like food. So the yellow very plain packaging with these kinds of messages reprinted over them. Maybe I'll just show this one. This is oh, got it. This is like the I think the last book we've published during the quarantine, which has been, or like during, the last 2 years through COVID. Um, it's by an illustrator from the UK named Hattie Stewart. And this is a project that she had brought to us as a printer. And uh, it just was like very, for Riso, it's very ambitious and really just like kind of blew us away. So we wanted to help her uh, be a part of publishing it and really get hands-on with making an edition that felt very special. So these are like very large, it's very large print. It's probably a project we could not repeat for how like difficult it was, like physically difficult and time consuming it was to produce. It's so it's just like as I like you print with the Riso in one color at a time and build the color up. And this is a 6-color book, and all the pages are oversized with some little pages found in. So it took months, like actually took months to produce. And it was like really, during COVID, I guess like, we had a lot of time on our hands, but it was, it's not something I think we could go through again, just because of like the difficulty of aligning so many colors and just the amount of time.
Yeah, it's really impressive, but I can't even imagine having to jiggle around with that.
So this is a selection of like work we've done. So a small selection of work we've done over the last 10 years with like some of this is the last thing, basically the last thing that we published. And then also some of the first things we published. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jasjeet, so much for sharing your work and showing us these books. It's been really, really generous of you. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or?
I don't think so.
I think that last artist is the first person that you showed who I don't already know their work. So now I'm gonna have to go look them up. Which is exciting for me. Well, thanks again so much. This has been really great to see what you're up to and get to see all these wonderful prints. I really think that you've done so much for printmaking and small publishing in Canada and internationally with Color Code and Zine Dream. It, from the very beginning, like you were an artist and maker, but you were always setting things up and organizing things, and it's just really cool that you continue to do that. I think everybody who's interested in these things benefits greatly from the work that you do.
Thanks for having me. You were one of the artists that like when I was starting to do, like figure out what I wanted to do, that like I really looked up to you and Yannick, and like it was a big influence on like my what I felt like was like work ethic and like producing, like wanting to make things and like work with other people and connect. And so it's nice to see you again. And thank you for having me.
All right, well, thanks for the folks who joined us. You can find out more about Expozine at expozine.ca or on our social media. On Instagram, we are at Expozine MTL because there is another Expozine on there. And thanks again for your time, Jaspreet. And yeah, Expozine out. Take care, everyone.